Good morning from Vietnam. Thanks a lot for joining our program, Dave. And we really appreciate that you spend your afternoon with us and the audience of the Inside Sharing Show. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And Dave, you have an amazing story that we want to share with our audience. And to start with, I would love to have you to do us a little introduction of who you are and the work you do now, please.
Sure. So again, it's David Dressler, and I was for a long time in the restaurant business. I built a company of a substantial size here in California, but also on the East Coast of the United States. And we built our company up to 30 locations, $100 million in revenue. We employed about 1,400 people. And the thing that I'm most proud of is that we built an enduring, beautiful culture of heart-centered, purpose-driven servant leadership. And that's the thing that I'm most proud of. And in about 2019, I retired from active duty, found myself a replacement, worked with her for a while, and then stepped into being a coach and advisor to purpose-driven founders. My work is predominantly on the culture side, which is, I think, what brought you and I together. I'm a big believer in heart-centered leadership. I'm a big believer in purpose-driven leadership. And I'm a big fan of seeing how companies can be an agent for change in the lives of the people that they employ. So that it's a win-win partnership, not just getting the job done, but getting life bigger and fuller and more meaningful. I grew up in Montreal, Canada, traveled the world, was educated in Europe, worked all over the United States, and I settled in California, which is where I built that business and where I live today with my family.
Wow. Thanks a lot for sharing that amazing, summarize of everything that you've been doing up until this point. Allow us to get back into this point at a later time. But now we're gonna bring you all the way back to a younger version of Dave. Okay. When I was young, I always wanted to become an astronaut. So I always imagine myself in the astronaut suit and then jumping in the moon. But life took me to the different directions, and I doing something that totally different than what I was dreaming when I was young. And so when you were young, Dave, what did you think and dream? One day when you grow up, you're gonna do and live.
Right, so the first thing I wanted to be was a dog. When I was a little boy, I remember distinctly saying to myself, one day I'm going to grow up and be a golden retriever. Clearly, there were some things that I didn't understand about life, but that's the first thing. The second thing that I wanted to be was a tugboat driver. I wanted to be somebody who drove one of those big boats that pulls bigger boats, a little boat that pulls bigger boats. So I never got there. I actually had imagined that I would play as a child of like imagining driving my boat and pulling the big boats behind me. And then I guess when it got real for me, the first thing that career wise that I wanted to be was a restaurateur and a hotelier. And I had grown up spending my summers in Lake Placid, New York, in New York State. My aunt and uncle had a hotel there that they ran for 50 years, and everybody before me, cousins, went to help in the hotel in the summertime. And my mom was a single mom. She had 3 jobs. And so the summertime when I wasn't in school, I had to do something and she had to work. So going there was like free summer camp for me, and job training and kind of a little bit of a working gulag for, for my aunt and uncle who employed young people. So from the age of 6, I think I was standing on a glass rack behind a dishwasher, washing dishes, and going out into the dining room to pour coffee for the guests and carry suitcases and drive the boats and wash down the paddle boats and rent the canoes. And so I spent my summers there until through I was a teenager, working, saving money for school, and growing into what I would then become.
And how's the journey after that, though? So you work in at the hotel that your aunt had, from the age of 16 to your teenage age, right?
Yeah.
And then what happened after that?
So I was going to graduate high school and I was going to need to go to college.
Mm.
And I had gone to 1 year of junior college in Montreal where I lived. And I realized that this hospitality thing was in my blood, that I really wanted to pursue it.
Mm.
So I applied to the Hotel School of Lausanne in Lausanne, Switzerland,
Mm.
and I was accepted. And I took a year to work to make the money for the first year's tuition. An uncle of mine gave me some money as well. My
Mm.
mom and dad scraped together what they could, and when I turned 18, I got on a plane by myself from Montreal to Geneva, and I started my life in Switzerland for the next 4 years, going to school there
Mm.
and studying hotel and restaurant administration, business school, and working my butt off to be able to pay for the subsequent years of tuition. And when I graduated from school 4 years later, having traveled a great deal of Europe and some of Asia, that's when I went to Thailand and got closer to you.
Uh-huh.
Then I applied for jobs in the United States and came back here and worked for the Hyatt Company and the Four Seasons Company,
Mm.
and slowly made my way building a career for myself as an executive in the hospitality business.
Wow. So you work up in the ladder at the Four Seasons and in the hospitality industry, and then in what occasion that you start your own company, Tender Greens? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. So I was uh, I was pursued by a small local boutique hotel company here in Los Angeles,
Mm.
and I went to work there. And my idea was I had already started to feel the entrepreneurial itch. There was a need for me to move away from the big company and go to a smaller company. I also kind of felt, like maybe this was an initial step, but the more I built my career in the big company, the more I looked up the food chain and said, I'm not really excited to do what my boss is doing.
Yeah.
And so I think my first step was go to a smaller company where maybe I can be a big fish in a small pond or feel like that.
Mm.
And what it really was the universe putting me in touch with two people who would become my destiny, and they are my two business partners in founding Tender Greens. The three of us ended up at the same hotel together.
Ah.
One was already a chef at that hotel. The other I recruited when my executive chef left a day after I started working there. And the three of us started working together and very quickly realized that we had a lot in common. We were about the same age. We had the same desires for career and for freedom, and we didn't want to stay working for anybody for too much longer. So we started plotting our escape. And that looked like getting together very early in the morning, sometimes at 4:30 in the morning. As soon as the coffee shop would open, we would get there. We would work for 2.5 hours, and then we would go to work at our real job.
Ah.
But always working every time we could on creating the business plan for what would become Tender Greens, the restaurant company that we founded together and opened for business in 2006.
Wow. So the three of you had that itches, right? How was the conversation started at the beginning when the three of you get together and had the ideas that you don't want to work for any company, but let's build a plan so that you can start something together? Can you share with us that feeling and the initial talks that the three of you had?
Sure, it was actually two of us.
Uh,
The first conversation was like this. The guy that I hired as executive chef, my partner or my future partner Eric, it was time for his year review.
mm,
I was his boss, so we went to a bar to
mm,
sit and have a drink and to discuss his performance over the past year. And he and I were friendly already, so
mm,
it was a sort of an informal way for us to talk.
mm,
To check the box of, HR wants me to do a performance review. I have to do a performance review, but he and I were very close. So we go to the bar and we sit down and we have the conversation and we have a couple of drinks, and then I say something like, "So, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?" You know, one of those corporate silly questions. And he said, "Hey, can we have a conversation off the record?" And I said, "Sure." And then we ordered another drink and we started talking, and he was sharing with me this rough idea about a restaurant concept that he thought would be really, really good here in Southern California. And when I was listening to him, I was like, man, this is not yet a business plan, but this is something amazing. And I said, yeah, I'm in. And I went home and I told my wife, I just had an amazing conversation that I think is going to change our lives. And he said, I'm already talking to Matt about it, but I think the three of us could really do something amazing. So I was in, and then probably within a year, I had left work at that hotel and gone on to start raising money to open our first restaurant.
Wow. So everything started from the performance review altogether with the off the record talk. So wow. And then what were you saying?
Well, he took a big chance. He was courageous enough to say, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this." And I feel like sometimes all we need is a little bit of permission to pursue our big dreams, you know. And I wasn't happy in my world of having a career working for others. He wasn't, and neither was Matt. And so this was a chance for the three of us who probably wouldn't have been brave enough on our own to do it, to come together, the three of us, to make it happen.
And it works both ways also, Dave, because earlier you said that you're a big believer of heart-centered leadership, right? So you gave Eric back then the trust so that he can be freely open and share it with you. So the three of you studied Tender Greens, and in which I understand is the industry with 90% failure rate, right? And then so didn't you guys worry, when you guys worry about, you're gonna get into something that's very challenging and had a big chance of failure?
Yeah, we were petrified, but we were petrified together. So, listen, I think there's a great deal of failure in our business because well-intentioned people who love food but don't know anything about the business get into the business because it seems very glamorous and very fun. It's not a glamorous business and it's not a fun business. We happen to know quite a bit about it before we got started. As two chefs and a director of food and beverage with a lot of operational experience and a lot of business experience, we had a leg up on a lot of people, and we had a good concept in a hole in the marketplace. But sure, it was really, really frightening to leave the security of a paycheck and prestige and everything else that's associated with a good solid career job to go out on our own. But the idea of not doing that was becoming more and more unacceptable to each of us. More like, the part of our soul is dying to not actually go out and try to build something amazing.
Wow. Dave, start a restaurant and be successful in one restaurant is already hard, and it's frightened already. And you guys work it from the ground up until 30 restaurants across the entire state, and up to 100 million US, and with a lot of rewards and awards back then. How did you do all of that? Can you share?
Sure. Well, I think the first thing is, we always, from the very beginning, said the business is going to come first. The business is going to be more important than our own individual egos, our friendship. The business is what's going to propel us forward in our lives and create opportunity for others, and therefore we must be really disciplined about putting the business first. So that's one. Two, we were good partners. We were, all three of us, good at different things. And I think one important lesson for entrepreneurs when they're thinking about their business partners is to make sure that you complement each other rather than that you we are all the same,
Mm.
because what you're not good at still needs to be taken care of.
Mm.
So the three of us were each good at something different, and that was important. The third thing is that we had all gone through working for companies that we didn't admire,
Mm.
bosses that we didn't admire, and we were
Mm.
determined to be a cultural place of significance and importance
Mm.
where people would say, man, I love working here. I love
Mm.
being a part of this team. That was important. Um, we were business minded. I think there's an important balance to be struck between creating a culture like the one I was describing, a heart centered, purpose driven culture, and also realizing that there has to be, that the business itself has to be prosperous in order for all of those wonderful things to happen.
Mm.
In order for us to make a societal impact, there has to be money in the bank. In order for us to provide the very best for our employees, there has to be money in the bank. In order to do fun things for the teammates, there has to be money in the bank. And in order to provide a return for the investors, there has to be money in the bank.
Mm.
So there is a careful balance between doing the right thing and creating all of the fun and beauty, and then also being fiscally responsible and building a business that way. And to that end, I think we were really cognizant of the fact that many chefs are not business people. They're chefs because they love to cook, because they love food, because they love making people happy through their tummies and through their eyes and through their noses, and but they have a lot to learn about the restaurant business. So we made it important to teach them how to be business people, so that each one of our restaurants was run as a business, not just as a lovely place to get great food.
Wow. And then since when you formed the philosophy that happy as home, and work is happier at home, happy as home is also happier as work. Since when that philosophy, being itches to you and then build up?
I don't. I think it. I went to an event uh, out in the desert east of San Diego, and it
Mm.
was a men's mentoring organization that was putting on this event. And there was a Hopi Indian who was saging people ritualistically, doing the smudging with wild sage. And when I smelled the sage, he was holding it near my heart. And when I smelled it burning, I had this incredible epiphany that there were three Davids. There was the work David, the husband David. I didn't have kids back then, but there was husband David, work David, and then there was this other David who was sort of just David. And the three of them were all really nice, good men, but they didn't know each other.
Mm.
That the way that I show up at work is different than the way that I show up at home,
Mm.
and the way that I show up for myself. That I'm always in service to something else, but I don't act the same way.
Mm.
And so I'm more disciplined and serious at work, and they don't get the benefit of my loving heart, and I'm more loving at home, and they don't get the benefit of my seriousness and my intellect.
Mm.
So I realized that there were three disparate parts of me that needed to come together.
Mm.
And I think the offshoot of having that experience of bringing the best of me to all the places where I am allowed me to somehow come up with this idea that when we're happier at home, we are more present for our work, and when we are happier at work, we are more present for the aspects of our home requirements.
Mm.
That either way, we have to recognize that when the workday starts, the home life doesn't go away. It's just parked for a moment. But if I've had a blowout with my wife, or if my mother is sick in the hospital, or if my child is not doing well in school, I'm going to subconsciously bring that into work.
Mm.
And if I have a bad time with my boss, or my business is underperforming, I'm going to probably bring that home with me at the end of the day.
Mm.
And so happier at home is happier at work, and happier at work is happier at home.
And it's extremely hard for us to make sure that it's not going to happen at work. What happened at work is not going to carry to home. What happened at home is not going to carry to work. It's extremely hard for us to do so. And I remember a lot of time my daughter and my son or my wife say, "Hey, you're not my boss," and I say the same thing to them. And when we got something in argument at home, and I still remember that sometimes even if I try the best to make sure that we distinguish between the two differently, but at work is also impact how I react to people, how I thought about people also. So how did you do do that successfully?
So as an employer of people and as a manager of people, I can't really control what goes on at home
Mm.
for the people on my team. I have no say there. I'm not there. But at work, one thing that I can tell you is that if I have the knowledge that somebody has had a bad time at home, there's something going on outside of work, wherever it is, that's impacting their life at work, I have two choices. I can either say, hey, you're at work now, put a smile on your face and get out there and serve the customer. Or I can say, hey, what's going on? Do you need a minute? And it's in that pausing to recognize that somebody is having a hard time and connecting with that person for a few minutes that they get to put the bag down for a second. They need to take the weight off of their shoulder for a second and say, thank you for asking. I'm okay, but here's what's going on for me. The recognition of their life is a moment of reckoning for the employer and the employee where they say, I'm cared about, I'm seen. My boss knows and cares that I'm obviously having a hard time here and gives me the benefit of a few minutes of time. That alone is huge. And it can go much deeper, right? You can have, in our case, we had a counselor at our company when our company got to a certain size where people could go and get some support for what they were having a problem with. Or we had a fund set up so that if somebody was in a financial scrape and they needed a few $100s to get through it, or they needed money for an emergency medical thing, or their tires got stolen off their car or whatever, they could get some support. Any way that we can help out, and first by listening, because sometimes that's all they need, or second by taking some helpful action, or by providing resources when we can, all of those things create heart-centered culture. All of those things create a sense of care. And what they really do under the surface is that they let the employee know that they matter.
Dave, it's amazing. You had a good intention to start, and then you took the action follows, and that is one thing that significantly very important for a lot of people. And I've been interviewing a lot of people. I had a lot of talks and outside of work and stuff like that. And that's one thing I also experienced personally is when our bosses came and I say, okay, are you okay? And they said anything that we need to talk, is anything that I can help you with? And we spent like 15-20 minutes sharing everything, and there was no action taken after that. And the busy world of the business keeping them to forget everything. And I was like, so why you ask me at the beginning anyhow? And I thought that I was alone in that question, but there was so many people out there also had the same feeling of our voice not matter, and the concern that our leaders had on us actually is not as big as the concern they had on the businesses, right? So how can you make time, from the intention and move into the action so that people can really truly appreciate the works and the words that you say to them?
Well, I can't listen. If you ask questions and you get information and then you don't use that information, then shame on you as an employer. I think what employers need to be reminded of or taught how to do is to follow up because it matters. If you're getting together and you're soliciting feedback, or you have a box on the wall that people can put a piece of paper in that says, hey, could you do this? Then act on it because it's a good idea. It's probably a good idea. And if it's a bad idea, respond to them and tell them why it's not a great idea right now, or why it wouldn't be not a feasible solution, or hey, we're not going to do that, but here's what we will do. But to just ignore the information is like, it's a slap in the face to the people that you're asking. Hey, we want your opinion. It's really important to us. We have an open door policy. Please share your input. We want you to feel a high level of engagement. And then you don't do anything. It's just bad. It's just bad business.
It is.
And what I would encourage folks to do, and what we did, was we'd say, okay, regularly, let's get together. Now throw some rocks at the brand. Tell us what we're doing wrong. Tell us where we could do better. And then we would have these sessions that we called creative destruction, where we would address what's working, what's not, and how do we fix what's not working. And they would present the issues to us, or they would tell us what that they think is the problems, or we would tell them the problems, and then together we would figure out the solution. Well, what's the solution for this? The people that work in the organization have all the best ideas about how to fix it. I often say, if you want to design a better broom, ask the person that sweeps the floor.
Yep.
So if you want to solve problems, bring everybody together and let them come up with the solution, and you provide some input too, and then take notes, put together the plan to initiate that improvement, and then go for it. And then where we sometimes mess up is we don't communicate it very well. We don't tell people this is the new thing. We don't hold people accountable to the new thing, so we go back to the old thing, and then we don't follow up and we say, how's the new thing going? So if we have the discipline to say, hey, we're going to train you on this so that we're all doing it. This is the new rule. The old rule is done. We don't do that anymore. And in a week from now, or a month from now, or a quarter from now, we're going to come back to you and we're going to say, well, how's it working? Is it better? And if it's better, great. Is there a way for us to make it even better? No, it's great. We're happy. Or no, it's no better than it was before. Well, then let's go back to the drawing board and let's figure it out again. Or maybe we're not even supposed to be doing this anymore. Maybe this is a terrible idea that we've just been sticking to for years that we don't need anymore. Either way, we've heard people, we've solicited their feedback, we've engaged them in the process of making it better. They feel ownership for the thing that they're working on, and everybody is rising together. We're making the situation better for everybody.
And that's a beautiful culture that I think for the people who can work under the organization that can build that culture. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people going to work not happy, and there was not, and I'm interested to know, why did you decided to leave Tender Greens and start something else, something that can be more impactful in the different scale? Can you share with us?
Sure. So I loved building the company. I loved my partnership with my two co-founders. I loved all the team that we built. I loved the product that we put out. I loved the culture we created. Everything was amazing for me, and it was hard work, super hard, and super fulfilling. And as the company got to a certain size, I realized that I wasn't the best person to lead the next phase. That I wanted somebody very experienced in the complexities of a $100 million business who could take it and make it bigger and better and stronger. But I didn't have that skill, and I knew that. And I think also, if I'm being completely honest, I was not as passionate as I had been at one time. The business had gotten way more complicated, and it wasn't like there were more people that worked at the company that I didn't know personally than I did know personally. And it wasn't, for years I knew everybody. But when a company gets to be much bigger, you don't know people anymore. So that was hard for me, and I felt like the company needed somebody that could come in with much more experience for the next phase of growth. And so the board agreed, and we went to try to find that person. And I did find that person, and I took 2 years to be with that person. She was a very experienced, seasoned CEO, great leader, fun, dynamic, reflective of our culture, had a lot of great ideas, heavy background in organizational development, working for progressive companies. And so I was excited to give her my spot. I even gave her my office. I said, you have my office. And then that was also a lonely feeling of seeing her take over the company, but important. And so then the question became, well, what's next for you, David? What are you going to do? If you're not going to do this, what are you going to do? And what I recognized in taking stock of my career was that the thing that I loved most was coaching people. Sitting and having conversations like you and I are now, having somebody who was stuck in something become unstuck in something through the conversation. Not through my wisdom, not through all of the things that I know, but because I asked good questions, or I listened well and reflected things back. And yeah, sometimes my experience played a part, but that was the thing that I loved doing the most. And
Mm.
so I decided to go back to school and become a coach. And I had, I don't know, 25 years of coaching experience working with all of my people, but I hadn't been to school in a long time. So I went and I got a coaching degree, an internationally recognized degree, and laid out my shingle and started to coach people at a time when people, particularly in the restaurant business, but throughout industry, needed somebody to talk to. It was right at the start of the pandemic.
Ah.
And businesses were in a tremendous state of upheaval. And what I realized was that the skills that I had in leading the charge, building a $100 million business, were very transferable to other industries,
Mm.
and that my ideal client is a purpose-driven uh, leader of a company who wants the best for his or her people, who wants to build something that's sustainably scaling, who wants to have meaning and purpose in the business, especially for the people and for their development. And I've found those people. That's my tribe. So I built my practice that way, and I'm in the process of putting the final touches on a 12-month program for leaders who have gotten their business off the ground successful, but now are looking at scaling it and want to do it thoughtfully, both to grow their business through the systems and infrastructure that they deploy, but also to protect the culture that made them successful to begin with. And so I'm going to work with a group of entrepreneurs to help them and be a guide, just like I had guides. I had mentors and consultants and coaches who helped me build mine. I want to be that for them.
Wow. And I'm always fascinated with the name quiet, because in the world that we are living in now, is too noisy, it's too fast and everything, right? So why did you choose your consulting firm? Its name is Quiet Advisory. I'm just curious.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking. Right. So it comes from a poem by the poet Rumi,
Mm,
who says, "The quieter you become, the more you can hear.
mm,
The quieter you become, the more you can hear." And so for me, as an advisor to founders and to executives, my job is to listen, not to
mm,
talk so much, but to listen well, and then to ask good questions, and to help the wisdom come from within.
mm,
I can put on my advisory hat when somebody's asking my opinion,
mm,
but first I want to know what they've thought about, because chances are they've thought about the right thing. They just
mm,
need help getting it out.
mm,
So that's the first reason. I also believe that I work with some very powerful leaders who themselves just need a guide on the side. They don't need somebody yelling at them with information.
mm,
They need quiet so that they can think, and I
mm,
provide that. So I can be loud and funny, and I can be pushy, and I can, if that's what my client needs. But my preference and my natural state is to be a reflective listener, to
ah.
be a partner, and to be a quiet guide on the side, rather than to be the sage on the stage.
uh, in the world, as a lot of people would like to, let their voice heard, and you chose to, sit on the sideline and let the voice for others be heard first, right? And how that feel to you? Does it feel natural, or it takes a lot of practice for you to learn and up and the skill that up?
I think that that's kind of who I am, but it was reinforced around the time that I was transitioning away from the company and building my practice, Quiet Advisory. Um, I was reading a book by Chip Conley
Mm,
called Wisdom at Work,
mm,
and it was a really impactful book for me. And that's where that guide on the side instead of this sage on the stage comes from. The idea of being of service to people, sharing your wisdom, paying it forward, using the skills that you've been taught for the betterment of others
mm,
is really, it's core to me, and it was in my career when I was building my career, and it's core to me now, giving back and being a coach to leaders. I want to help them avoid the holes that I fell into, the mistakes that I made. I want to be that person that can see around corners for them, that friend, a helpful uncle, so to speak. And I want to help them, not in a way where I think that they're deficient in any way, but in a way that I can reflect all of the power and sage and wisdom that they have back to them.
Dave,
So
yes,
I don't think it's difficult. I think sometimes I have a sticky on my desk right here. You can't see it, but it says wait, and wait stands for why am I talking? And it's my question to myself, just to make sure that I'm not letting my ego run the session, that I'm not letting me get in the way of somebody figuring things out for themselves.
How's the experience? How's life experience for you in 2.5 years now, right? Working with leaders in various industry and helping them to build up their and scale up their business. How does that feel to you?
Feels like I'm right where I should be. Because there's two sides of that, right? There's building the systems and the infrastructure, and then there's which is fun and pretty formulaic, vision, mission, goals, strategic plan, people development plan, all of that stuff. Really exciting and great, especially for founders and entrepreneurs who don't have that structure in their minds yet. That's exciting. Even more exciting than that is seeing a leader transform into a young leader transform into a mature leader, to find the heart-centeredness, to let go of the fear and the anxiety and the ego, and to become a great leader that is admired by their people, a great teacher, a great developer. That's the really rewarding stuff for me, because that pays dividends everywhere, because happier at home is happier at work, and happier at work is happier at home. That's the best part. That's the transformational part.
I had a feeling, strongly that the work that you're doing now actually has been inside of you. You wanted it to do it a longer, way, back in there. So it just happened because after the transition, then you start to having more freedom of time to pursue for this. So if you can rewind your time and everything, would you, when do you think that you would want to start this whole transitioning though?
That's a great question, and I think I'm a pretty responsible guy. I think they say Capricorns are responsible. I don't really know much about astrology, but I'm a pretty responsible guy. And I feel a lot of sense of duty. And I think probably years before we got to the point where I said, it's time for us to find somebody to replace me, I probably would have been happier in my career doing what I'm doing now. I probably could have, if I didn't feel such a tremendous responsibility to the people at the company, I might have left earlier. If I'm being completely honest, I might have been more courageous to leave earlier. But woulda, shoulda, coulda. I think I did what I thought was the right thing to do for the company. I did the right thing because my partners had already stepped away, and I felt a strong sense of just that responsibility for the future of the company.
So it brought back to the beginning of everything that you started. The first one is a discipline, right? So put the business first, because and so that is a thing that keep you to complete the assignment before you move to the next stage in what you do.
Yeah, I think that's true. My partner Eric and I last year published a book called 10-Year Plan. It's the story of the first 10 years of Tender Greens and how we built the company. And he and I, we made a promise to each other years ago that if the story was ever worth telling, we would write it down and tell it.
Wow.
And so for a year, we sat together on Mondays and Fridays, and we wrote this story. And one of the best things about that was that one, we could have some catharsis about what we achieved. We could celebrate a little bit and say, hey, you know, we built a big company together. We did something amazing that few people have done. And two, we could like get aligned on, well, how do you remember that? Oh, how do you remember that? And tell the stories together and forgive ourselves for some of the mistakes that we made and celebrate together some of the things that we were really proud of and remember them. And so the end of the book talks about that transitional period and how we were excited to move on to the second mountain, so to speak, and to be of service and to pay it forward. And it feels like the right thing to be doing right now with everything that I was lucky enough to learn in the process of building a company.
Wow. Hey, I want to say also congratulations on that. We had a lot of business leaders by the time they retire. There's two things that they regret. First is they did not start their own companies when they were younger, and because they know that they're capable of, but they not have for a lot of different reasons they did not start their own company. Okay. The second is they all wanted to write a book, and sharing the journey, the lessons learned, everything. But again, they did not do it. So that's two regrets that they had when they retired. And we always encourage them to, never late. If it's not now, then start to do it. So you did both. And earlier you say that you asked Eric about, what's your plan for 5 years, right? For the next 5 years. And that is when the two of you had the first, off the record conversation and build Tender Greens. So why your book is a 10-year plan?
Sure. So when we got together and we decided to open our first restaurant, we wrote a business plan. And the business plan was not just a chance to have a document to present to shareholders, but more importantly, it was the homework to figure out who we want to be and how we're going to build this business together and think through every aspect of it. Not just the food, not just the service, but how we're going to operate as a business. That was hugely rewarding. Then we had to incorporate. And when we went to incorporate, we were thinking about, well, we're committed to this. We're going to build this for our shareholders, and we're going to go out and ask for money. How long till we pay them back? Well, how long does it take to build a company that's worth anything? That's really like a solid, rock solid company. And we said 5 years is too short. 10 years. Okay. So if we're going into business together, we're going into business for 10 years. And we're going to tell our shareholders, you're investing for 10 years. Don't look for a dividend check. Don't call me in year 5 and say you want your money back. 10 years. And we're going to commit the three of us to our partnership for 10 years. And so we went to incorporate our company, and we called our company TYP Restaurant Group, and that stands for 10-year plan. And 10-year plan is the company that we created. And we made good on our promise to our shareholders in year 9 of our 10-year plan. We built the company the best way that we knew how over 10 years, completely committed to everything that we said we were going to do, and we did it. And so I believe that 10 is a pretty good number in terms of building a company and being committed to something. It's also a great number for a 10-year plan for your life. And so that's why the book's called 10-Year Plan. That's why our company was called TYP. And it's why I'm building this TYP program now for entrepreneurs, for founders who are wanting to scale their businesses.
Dave, how can you ask the shareholder to wait, for the 10 years plans? How can you, persuade them not to be rushing into into the business and ask for the return on investments?
Well, nobody was holding a gun to anybody's head and say, hey, you have to write this check now. We told them what the plan was, and it was part of the expectations. Listen, we're going to build this company over 10 years, and we're not going to sell it. We're not going to go public. So you have to be patient and you have to be willing to park this money for some time. If you're not, then don't invest in this company.
Ah, wow.
Right? So if we were disclosing that up front, it's a privately held company, there will not be a liquidity event until 10 years out. Don't invest if that's not your time horizon. And of course, for many institutional investors, that's not acceptable.
Mm,
But that's not who we were going to in the beginning. We weren't talking to venture capitalists. We weren't talking to private equity groups. We were talking to our friends, our family, and in subsequent rounds, we were talking to customers who were
mm,
saying, "How can I be a part of this?"
mm. So select the right partner to invest in into your company. Otherwise, it's going to create a lot of chaos along the way for the 10 years plan also, right? Uh,
100%.
Dave, my wife and I are really interested to help people to grow their ability to think because we've been seeing that in our feelings and the ability for people to think actually is not increasing but it declining, and for every conversation that we had with experts, we try to get to the secret sauce of how they can think. So this question for you is, David, you do a lot of works require you to think deep and think broad also, and let's say if the 10 years plan, there's a lot of uncertainty that you head toward into that uncertainty and put a lot of thinking in advance for 10 years, right? How do you help yourself to create the space that can help you to think deep and big like that?
Well, one, I think, is the recognition that in each of our lives and in each of our careers, we are called upon to do things that only we can do.
Ah.
That we are the best candidate for a particular job.
Mm,
Thinking long term for your life or for your career or for your company is one of those.
mm,
Nobody can do it better.
mm,
What we tend to do is fill up our time with things that other people should be doing or that we shouldn't just not be doing at all.
mm,
And so we have to have the discipline to say, I'm going to do, for the most part, the things that only I can do that will make the best and brightest impact on the world
mm,
or on my world. And I will stick to doing those things with some level of discipline. One of them is thinking time,
mm,
high level thinking time. So I have to have the recognition that only I can do that and I have to do it.
mm,
That's one. Two, for me, it works to write things down as opposed to just try to think them, to draw
mm,
pictures, to get it out of my head and onto paper.
mm,
And three is to have a buddy. I think
mm.
that's what one of the things that coaching is particularly useful for, is to have a sounding board, somebody who can hear you, somebody who can listen and ask you more questions and show you, wow, that's a really amazing idea. Tell me more about that. Tell me more so that I can participate in that. Let me share with you my feedback on that,
Mm,
because otherwise we're operating in a vacuum.
mm,
So I think that's probably one of the reasons that we were successful as a company,
mm.
because the three of us could feed off of each other.
I see.
And I think that's why people look for coaches, because coaches can help them, just like a therapist can, just like an advisor can, just like a board of advisors or a board of directors, if properly used,
Mm,
can be a resource for
abs-
for people to do high level thinking.
absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. So, you have to have the belief that, things that happen, you are the only person that can solve it and doing it. And so you commit to the thinking time. The second is that you wrote it down, things in your head so that you can see it and envision and have the vision on that. The third one is, you gather yourself with the group of people who can help, one another to grow to the next level, right?
Yes, and I think the fourth thing is probably ongoing development,
Mm. What do you mean by
ongoing
that?
learning.
Ongoing learning. Okay. Dave, I'm gonna ask you my last question. Okay, so we understand your past at the sixth grade, and 6 years old until the teenager, you work for your uncle and your aunt at a hotel. You moved to Switzerland and Geneva to learn for hotel management, hospitality management, right? Then you start your career, in the hospital, grow up, and that starting your own business with your two buddies, right? And then now you're doing the coaching and having leaders around the world to scale up, to be better leaders, to be better culture for the organizations. Everything's so beautiful. We want to head into the next 10-year plan for you, so we want to go into the next, the a little bit into the future. Is there anything that Dave Dressler is doing that exciting you want to share with us in advance so we can together celebrate with you now?
Thank you very much. That's so nice. I mentioned this 12-month program that I'm developing for entrepreneurs, for founders and executives building purpose-driven businesses. I'm really excited to bring that in the new year, and so excited about that because that will really be my higher purpose at work, to develop leaders and to develop them with their soft skills and their hard skills to build meaningful businesses. That's one. Two, I also am loving the coaching that I'm doing, so I continue to work one-on-one with great leaders. Three, one of the things that I learned about myself is that I love to write. Writing the book was just an amazing experience. And so I have another book that I'm writing on the story of my father, and I'm in wartime in the Second World War, and that's proving to be a really heart-centered, amazing project for me.
Wow.
I have promised, and one of the things that came out of writing this book about my father is that he had always told me, David, you should learn to play an instrument, and I never had the discipline to do it. But he was a harmonica player, so I bought myself a harmonica, and I'm going to teach myself to play the harmonica. I have two little kids, 5 and 9 years of age, and I love spending time with them and seeing them grow and having fun with them. And I have a great wife who I've been married to for 21 years, and she's an amazing person. And every chance I get to spend meaningful time with her is a great day. So, I have two kids that will need to see the planet, and so I'm going to show it to them and have fun seeing it through their eyes.
Vietnam is a part of the planet. So take your two kids and your wife to this country. Right?
I was calling you.
Absolutely.
I'm calling you, telling you we're on our way.
I will be so delightful to welcome your family to this country and take you guys around. I will be so happy doing that, David. And I invite you to the show because we really admire the work that you do, the accomplishments that you've been having. And with this conversation, the admiration for you is getting to the next level. So we wish you all the best so that you can, help people go to the next level and enabling them to do something amazing like what you wanted to do. And I hope that I will be able to see you one day. And if we travel to the States next year for my daughter's high school graduation, I hope that I can swing by to your area and just hey, have a cup of coffee together. All right.
Me too, both ways. And I want to thank you for being just such a great and gracious host. I've had such a good time connecting with you today and talking with you. You're a gem. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You have a wonderful evening there, all right? Say hello to your family first.
I will for sure.
Okay. Bye bye, Dave.
Bye.
Bye.